My name is Kevin Waddell. I'm the estimating manager for Interfab here in the Midwest. Locally, we previously were a Foley company. We were bought by Interfab in 2015, and we're starting to undergo the actual transition and some changes. So, Foley company's been around 105 years. Who I was an employee of, managing the estimating department for Foley is now Interfab. We're a multidisciplinary company. We do power industrial, water, wastewater facilities, some commercial work, not a lot, but some. Our specialties are mechanical, pipe fitting, plumbing, structural concrete, boilermaker work, operators, laborers, carpenters, iron workers, you name it. We do just about everything, including electricians. We're also electrical. So, diverse amount of capabilities, diverse amount of estimating. So, what I hope to do today is give you guys just an introduction to estimating, plan reading, and give you some tools and basic takeoff guidelines so you can win work. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a professional engineer, licensed in civil engineering. I've got about 24 years experience in estimating, both on the design side and construction side. I started my career, my first boss gave me a set of plans. I said, here, this is the job we just designed. I was a new hire. And he said, find out what this, tell me what this is worth, how much it costs. And look at this job and well, I'm just out of school. What am I going to do here? I know nothing. And so I just picked up the phone and started calling contractors that did this type of work. And I started asking them, hey, what's this cost? What's that cost? What's this worth? And over time, got some experience that way. And then was put in the field to be the observer, if you will, or the project representative on that job and watched it get built. Learned a lot that way, and then over time it's just blossomed from there. I got a chance to go on the construction side, and been on the construction side for 20 years. So it's a little bit about myself. Done a lot of estimating, a lot of different types of estimating. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I've got a career hit rate somewhere in the 18 to 20%, so that means about 1 out of every 5 or 6 jobs that I look at or I'm involved with, we win. That's a pretty good rate. I think if you ask around, the national average is probably 14 to 15%. So, been pretty successful and proud of my accomplishments, and I hope today I can share with you guys some of what I've learned along the way and make this worthwhile. Maybe have a little fun. I got a couple fun little videos I think. So, real quick, what is cost estimating? Let me ask you first, is anybody in here never estimated at all? Anybody new to it? How many have been doing it less than a year? Okay, quite a few, good. Less than 3? So just about everybody. Okay. So all fairly new, that's good. Hopefully this isn't stuff that is redundant or boring to you. Hopefully you learn a little bit today. So what is cost estimating? You see this formula, like, what? What's going on here? So real quick, in our opinion, the definition of cost estimating is the approximation of the cost of a program, project, or operation. To me, some of the good characteristics of what I would consider to be a good estimator, one, experience. Now, I'm not saying you can't be a good estimator your first year out of the gate, but obviously with time and experience you become better. Education, preferably some sort of background, whether it's through the trades, you come up through the ranks, you've been in the field for 20 years, and all of a sudden they ask you to come to the office and start figuring out what stuff costs. I mean, that counts as education, or whether it's a formal education. Your personality, I think estimators have to be personable, personally. You need to be able to get up and talk to people. You need to be able to communicate, convey your thoughts, ideas. Organizational skills, huge for an estimator, right? How many times you go into an estimator's office and you see stuff just scattered everywhere? You wonder, what is going on? He tells you, what's my filing system? I got it figured out. Yeah, right. When it comes time to get the estimate done, he's not ready, or she's not ready. So organizational skills are huge. And nowadays, computer literacy, right? When I first started, computers were just coming out. I mean, email was like, what? You know, now everything's done by email proposals, quotes. When I first started, it was still fax, or a phone call, or sometimes you still mailed it in the mail, believe it or not. So, computer literacy today is a big skill. And then self-motivation. You're not going to be successful if you're not self-motivated. You've got to want to go out and win work. And put yourself out there. Sorry about that. So, an estimator, what do you have to do? You have to understand cost, number one, right? And number two, you got to know the difference between cost and price. Can anybody tell me what the difference between cost and price is? Anybody?
Cost is what you pay for it, and your price is what you charge.
Exactly. So when I talk about proposals, I don't call it a cost proposal, I call it a price proposal, because your cost is what you're going to do it for, what it costs you to execute the work. Your price is what you're telling the person you're giving your proposal to what it's worth, right? So your cost is your cost. Your price is going to have your markup on it, your overhead, which is what we call soft cost. But your price is what you're going to do the project for, and that's what it's going to cost you to do the project. So you always give your owner or general contractor this, right? Price, not cost. Remember that. Remember the difference between price and cost. So what is an estimator? I kind of like this slide. It's kind of funny. These guys over here are like, we just got our butt kicked, right? 19 zillion is too much for that cost estimate. But these four things I think kind of make up what an estimator does. You're a business developer, right? You're on the front edge of your company trying to get the work. You're a mistake eliminator. By that I mean you're the first one to see a set of drawings, a set of plans. So you're the one doing the quality control, if you will, on those plans, looking for the problems, looking for the risk, looking for areas where your company can make a mistake, and then you're going to try to cost the job to eliminate possible mistakes, right? You're a problem solver. Again, you're the first one looking at a set of plans. You're the one that's building the job in your head, trying to solve that question of how are we going to build this project. So you're a problem solver, and you're a proposal writer. At the end of the day, you develop the estimate, and you're going to send it to the owner in whatever proposal format that is required. So let's talk a little bit about plan reading. I'm not going to put up a picture of a plan here and go through everything because so many plans are different, but there's certain characteristics to a set of plans that you find common, no matter if it's architectural, mechanical, plumbing, multidisciplinary, whatever it is. So first of all, there are multiple types of plans: civil, architectural, mechanical, electrical, multiple disciplines like a building project or a site project or a wastewater treatment plant. You've got all kinds of different disciplines. So understanding the organization of the plan, how it's organized, is important. And a lot of times the sheets, you see engineers or architects do things differently, but there's usually a mechanical section, right? There's usually a plumbing MEP section. There's usually a structural section. Sometimes the architectural is separate from the structural. Sometimes you got civil site work involved, and that's its own little section of the plan. So understand how they're organized and what you're looking for, or what trades you perform, to where to go in that set of plans to find it, right? So usually, sometimes on the front cover, sometimes on the second page, they'll give you a list of plan sheets. And the sections stuff that's in the set of plans, they'll say civil, architectural, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, right? And you can easily go through and find these sections and say, okay, I need to go to these sheet numbers and look at the structural work. Or I need to go to this section and look at the details. So it all starts with the cover sheet, which tells you the name of the project. Sometimes it gives you an address, sometimes it gives you a picture or a map of where it's at. It'll tell you who the engineer is, right? It'll tell you who the owner is. Might have the list of plan sheets that are embedded in that set of plans in the front cover. It might not. It just depends on the engineer or architect involved. And then each set of plans has construction details, right? And typically those details are separate from the actual design. They'll have a section where they'll put all the structural details, or they'll put all the architectural details, or they'll put all the plumbing details. And those are the critical items that you need to look at when you're taking off your project to see how they want this built, right? What's a roof penetration look like for a 4-inch vent? What's a plumbing floor drain penetration look like for a drain coming through an 8-inch slab, right? What do my receptacle details look like for electrical receptacles? Things like that are all in the construction details that tell you how you're going to build this project. And then there are the actual design plans, which is what the engineer or architect has come up with on how their concept of how this building or site or plant or whatever needs to get constructed. And that's where the different trades come in that we talked about previously. So knowing just how the basic set of plans is set up will help you tremendously down the road. So here's some tips on some basic plan reading. And you feel free to ask questions, shout out. If there's something I'm not talking about you want to hear about, ask me. This is kind of interactive deal, so feel bad to figure it out. One of the first things that we always do is review the plan date, revision, or addendum. Right? How many of you get a set of plans and a week later you get an email with another set of plans, or you get a phone call saying, hey, this set of plans is out, right? It happens a lot, doesn't it? There's always changes, things are ever changing. It's very critical that you understand at all times which set of plans you're working off of. We had a project once for a power utility, and literally I was getting what we call revs, which are revision drawings. I was getting 3 revs a day for weeks on end. 3 revs a day every day. There were hundreds of drawings, and to keep up with that and make sure we were analyzing and reviewing the right rev for changes was a task all in itself. So just always make sure you find the plan date on the plan. If there isn't one, don't be afraid to question the engineer architect to make sure you have the right set of plans. The scale. Does everybody know what the scale means? What it is? Very important, right? If you don't get the scale right, what happens? The whole thing's off, or your takeoffs off, right? So it's very important to not only look at the scale, but to check the scale. Does anybody know how to check the scale? Anybody know how to check the scale? Make sure it's right?
Select something on the drawing that you know the size of, like a door, or, something like that.
There you go. What else?
Use Google Earth.
Yeah, you can do that. So all this stuff, nobody said this. Yeah, this is an old time. This tells my age, right? This is an old school tool. Every estimator should have one. We'll talk about this a little bit later. But this is an engineer scale. There's also an architect scale. Use this. I keep these. Always have. Always will. Okay. Because even though we're in an electronic age and you can do everything through Bluebeam and PlanSwift and OST and some of the great software programs that are here, at the end of the day, engineers and architects still make mistakes, right? And what do you have to do? You've got to check and make sure you get the right scale. So there's multiple ways of doing it. But always, always, always check your scale. The first thing I tell a new hire at our company or a young estimator that I'm working with, I mean, that can really screw you up. So always check your scale. And if it's not listed, call your engineer architect and say, hey, I need to know the scale for this drawing. And if they can't give it to you, say, well, how do you expect me to take this off if you can't tell me the scale? So always check the scale. Drawing orientation. A lot of times, everything north is up on the drawing. Everybody understand what I mean by that? So when you're looking at a plan view, looking at your set of plans, up is typically north. But it's not always that way. And so sometimes if you get into a set of plans and the engineer's changing, or architect, I keep saying, they're changing drawing orientation. In other words, one plan sheet may show it this way, another one may show it this way, another one may show it 180. Understand from which orientation you're trying to look at. It'll help you either take off and help you understand the project better. So always understand the drawing orientation. Symbols are a biggie. How many of you, when you get a set of drawings, look at the symbols? Show of hands. Only a handful. You have to look at the symbols. You have to. It's tedious, it's not fun, it's boring. It wears me out. Because they come up with some crazy ones, and it seems like there's a lot of different ones. Some of them are universal, but there's a lot of engineers who label things like Black and Beach, HDR, no disrespect, but they all have different symbol systems, and it gets old. But you've got to understand what a symbol means on a set of drawings, whether it's a P or a little cross, all kinds of little drawings. There's always going to be a plan sheet. There should be, and if there's not, what do you do? Engineer architect. There should be a legend that tells you what the symbols stand for. So when you go through and you start your estimate, you're looking at your design, looking at your details, and you're looking at your symbols. Right? Those 3 things. You're deciphering what it is they're telling you goes in this certain spot on the plan. So understand where the symbols are, and the legends in the drawings, and review them. I'm not saying you have to memorize them, but review them and just have a familiarity with what they are. Existing conditions versus new design on a set of drawings. Has anybody seen this before? What did it look like on the set of drawings? Can you
The
describe?
existing conditions will be more of a faint dimension or contour, and your design dimensions are gonna be a solid color.
Exactly. Everybody get that? So let's say we're remodeling this room right here, okay? Let's say we're gonna knock that window out, we're gonna build it out and put a little foyer out there, a little sunroom or something. So on your plan, they show in the plan view looking down from above at this room, and it'll be a lighter font. Okay, it'll almost be like a light gray or light blue, depending on what color the plan is. And the new addition would be a really dark, bold type of font. Everybody understand that? That's your difference between what we call existing conditions and then the new design. So you want to be cognizant of that, and you want to be aware of that, because I've seen it happen. I've done it. You tootle along, do your takeoff. Oh, this is great. I'm really flying through this. And you realize, oh, crap, I just took off the existing building. I need to be taking off the new stuff, right? And sometimes that can happen if the engineer or architect don't do a really good job of scaling down that boldness or that font, that color. So study your drawings and familiarize yourself with what is existing and what is new on your drawings. Right? And learn the difference between the two. And it tells you what's already in place versus what you're going to build. And then there's the hard design information, whether it's 10-foot tilt-up concrete panel wall or metal roof or new carpet in this room, putting it down. Those are all the different types of design information that an architect or engineer are going to put in your set of plans. So understand what the new design is versus the existing, so you know what your design information is that you're going to be taking off. And then there's a flip through versus a detailed study. The first thing I do when I get a set of plans, I'm like a little kid in a candy store. I'm like, oh yeah, a new job came in. I tear into it and I just start flipping through it. I want to know what's in that set of plans. I want to know all the disciplines. I want to know who I'm going to be dealing with, what subcontractors I think I'm going to have to be reaching out to, what material suppliers like these guys from Victolic here that we're going to be reaching out to. I want to know immediately. And so I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm just tearing through it, flipping through. And then there's the detailed study where you're going to sit down, take some time, and study your drawings. How many of you, when you get a set of plans, just immediately sit down and try to do a takeoff? Anybody? Good, good. I encourage you not to do that, because chances are you're going to make a mistake or you're going to miss something. Get your set of plans, take some time and study it. I know there's a time crunch. Yeah, I get it. You're going to get a set of plans, the guy goes, man, I need a price tomorrow. Hurry up. You're asking for a mistake, right? Still study the plans. Get familiar with them, understand what's in there before you try to sit down and just do an immediate takeoff, okay? Any questions on this so far? Any comments? So I want to talk a little bit about estimating tools and processes. We have at Interfab a standard operating procedure, SOP for estimating, that I'll go into in a little bit. But first we'll talk about some estimating tools, and it's not really maybe what you think as far as tools go. I kind of thought to step back from this and said, if I was a new estimator or fairly new, what would I want to know then that I know now? So put together a little list here, and the first thing I came up with was knowledge, right? Knowledge is king. If you know everything about your trade, then you're going to be more successful as an estimator. Now, none of us know everything. I mean, you can ask Michael here. Michael's one of our estimators in our estimating department. We go around and we collaborate, and we bang ideas off each other. We ask questions to our operations department because we don't know everything. But you have to know something, right, to be an estimator. So knowledge is important, and you can get that in many different ways. Field experience, which is very valuable. And even if you're not a tradesperson or somebody that came up through the field, get some field experience. If you're a young estimator and you work for a company that will allow it, I would certainly ask your boss, say, hey, I'd like to get out in the field and see this job being built. I want to spend 2 weeks, a week, whatever. Get some field experience. Interact with the guys or gals that are doing the work in the field, and you'll learn a ton from it. Okay, there was one time I bid a job. It was actually at night. It was installing a box culvert. And I went out with the crew one night, and I actually helped set box culvert for a whole night at night because I wanted to know what they went through at night and what it looked like at night versus day to install a box culvert. I learned a ton from that experience. So even though I wasn't a pipe layer or an operator, I went out and physically put the hard hat on, put the boots on, got in the ditch with the guys, and learned how to do it. So it's invaluable. Of course, formal education. You don't have to be an engineer or anything to be a good estimator, but if you do go to construction management school, get a degree or a 2-year business degree of some kind, you can still be a good estimator. So formal education and then training. Sorry, keep hitting the wrong button. Training. We're big on training in Interfab. Just like today, Michael's here today, and we've got another estimator here today, sitting through some of these classes, trying to learn the latest technologies, latest trends in estimating. Training's huge. If you're not keeping up with that stuff and asking your company to send you to events like this more at least twice a year, then you're missing out. So things are changing rapidly, technology's changing rapidly, and estimators have to keep up with that. We've got devices, right? I showed you the engineer's architect scale. It's old school, but it still works, right? Still functions, serves its purpose. And then there's the digital wheel. Does anybody know what a digital wheel is? Do you? I've got one here. I can show everybody. I used to use this a lot before electronic plans and all the on-screen stuff came out because it was faster. But you can use this little digital wheel, and you can do more than just linear takeoffs with it. You can do all kinds of different takeoffs with it, but it's digital, so as you trace things, it's keeping track of the data for you and helping you take stuff off. I still use this from time to time. I need something done real quick. And then, of course, computers and tablets. Right? I mean, that's where it's at, let's be honest. This stuff's still handy and does have its place, but it really boils down to everything's computerized these days. So that leads into technology. You know, you've got estimating and takeoff softwares, and there's a difference. We'll talk about that. You've got PlanSwift, on-screen takeoff, which I think the OST guys are here today, and then even Bluebeam. And these are examples of what I would call takeoff softwares, not estimating softwares. There's a big difference. These items, although you can put costs in here and help generate some cost, these are really meant to help you generate quantities, right? And then the quantities you estimate and put your costs to. Now this AccuBid here is an actual estimating software. We use this in-house for our mechanical and electrical. As you're taking off pipe, fittings, valves, or taking off wire and receptacles and light fixtures and things like that, it's actually putting man-hours to those takeoffs based on national averages or based on your in-house database that you have with historical data over time. So AccuBid is just one example of a true estimating software. And then there's softwares like Hard Dollar, Bid to Win, Heavy Bid, and of course Excel, that are what we call roll-up softwares or estimate roll-ups. They're not really estimating for you, and they're not really doing any takeoffs. They're a means to where you can organize your estimate, put all your costs in, and use this tool to put your overhead on it, your markup, and things like that. And it helps spread costs and helps spread overhead and markup very quickly, very efficiently. So when you get down to a closeout, at the end of the day, you're trying to get a number done quick and turn it in. These types of softwares help you out in that respect. We as Interfab are getting ready to move towards Hard Dollar, which is a pretty powerful tool. So right now we just use an Excel spreadsheet that's kind of a written program. It has multiple tabs, and all those tabs feed into one tab, and everything what we call rolls up to your final price. But we're getting ready to transition away from that. Too many mistakes happen here. We're trying to eliminate those mistakes. Estimators also should have a little understanding of scheduling, right? There's some scheduling software. Primavera is number 1. Microsoft Project is probably number 2. If there's others out there, I'm not aware of them really, because these are the 2 we use. But have a little understanding of scheduling. Because at the end of the day, your estimate, your man hours that you generate have to translate to a schedule for somebody, right? Whether it's your operations team or general contractor, or whoever that is. So it's always nice to have a little understanding of scheduling, the more the better, in my opinion. And then let's be honest, social media. I mean, here we are today, everybody's tweeting, hashtag 2018 KC Estimator Academy, which if you're not doing that, you need to, right? You can get my butt chewed all day if you're not tweeting enough, but social media is huge. I mean, it gets your company out there, it gets you out there. And if you're not happy in your current job, social media is one way to attract attention. So, big deal right now. Any questions on any of this? Anybody have anything else? I think it's a tool that I didn't mention. The Jack Stack barbecue. I told you, Mike, man, this is a bad time slot for us. All right. So, estimating process. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we at Interfab, we have a standard operating procedure, and we like to think it's pretty good. It's a process that when we bring a new estimator on board, like Michael, what have you been with us less than a year now? Right? When Michael came on board, we were able to hand him the SOP book. He reads through it. Don't expect him to know it. Don't expect him to understand all of it, but at least he gets an idea of what we're trying to do and the steps that we go through when we get a set of plans in-house. First of all, we decide, whether or not we want to bid it, okay? But then once we decide it's a go, what we call go, no go, once we decide it's a go, we have a standard operating procedure for how everything's done. How many times have you scrambled on an estimate? Right, yeah. Were you prepared for what was coming at you? Yeah, no. So have a process. Be prepared. That's a big deal. If you have a process, things seem to flow a little bit smoother. So, one of the first things you want to do once you review your set of plans and figure out what it is you're doing, you want to solicit your subcontractors and/or suppliers, correct? Do your quantities takeoff, organize your estimate, estimate your cost, and then prepare your bid. So this is kind of just a real rudimentary, step-by-step little process of how we kind of do things. We make sure we solicit subs and suppliers early. Scott may not agree with me, but we try to get them on board early to give them enough time to prepare a good quality proposal to us, right? Because it's all about being as competitive as possible. And so if you're asking somebody to give you a price at the last minute, you're not doing them service, doing them justice. And it happens, don't get me wrong, sometimes it's unavoidable, but we try not to. We try to give our sub and suppliers plenty of time with the sub drawing.
Well, what would you consider plenty of time?
Well, it depends on the size of the job. I would say, if you're looking at a $10 million job, you probably got to give them about 3 to 4 weeks. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
If you're looking at a $1 million job, a week and a half is probably sufficient. But it's kind of a nebulous question. It depends on the scope and how much. I mean, that $1 million job, it may be all his pipe for $1 million job. So it may be all on him, and he may need a little more time to that. But rule of thumb is more time the better.
Tough part though for you is sometimes you've only got 4 weeks,
Right.
so, yeah.
So,
We don't have much time. We get it short, and then we give it out short, and
Absolutely.
it's a whole, everyone's flustered with it, so.
yeah. And it happens. Hey, that's part of our industry. I mean, everybody wants everything now, right? We're in the now world, let's be honest. Tweeting and LinkedIn and Facebook, everything's about information now. It's moving, and it's carried over to the construction world and the estimating. It puts a lot of pressure on us, right? I mean, how often do you feel the pressure? I do. I thrive on it, but I feel it. It's tough. It puts a lot of pressure on you, especially if you've got, a team of 8 or 9, you're working on 3 or 4 different projects at once, trying to juggle those and make sure you hit all the right deadlines and get all the right people solicited. It puts a lot of pressure on your department and on your company. So, allow enough time to solicit. In other words, I would not suggest you do your quantities takeoff first and then solicit, right? 'Cause you're eating at valuable time. It may take you a week or 2. Because I know, I've been there. You want to get in, you want to dive in, you want to get your stuff taken off, you want to get it done off your plate, and you'll put everything else secondary. Well, these people are very key to your success as well. So there's a fine balance between making sure you're taking care of your stuff and suppliers, but also getting your work done. Organize, we'll do your quantities takeoff. So identify what scopes of work your firm is doing. And then if you're a one-person show, then you better get busy. But if you've got a department and other people to fall back on, and a lot of times what we do is we look around the room and have meetings and say, okay, this guy's got a less workload, she needs a little work, he's full up, she's not. And we divvy up responsibilities, and we've got people that are better at certain trades or tasks than others, right? We've got electrical estimators, we've got mechanical, we've got some people who can do all, some that can do civil. So a lot of it depends on who's available and what type of job it is. But get your quantities taken off and get them taken off then, you get them taken off early. And then organize your estimate. Figure out how you want to set up your estimate. So number one, you don't have any mistakes, any gaps or holes, right? You don't miss anything. And organize it to where it'll help you be the most expeditious in getting it done. So if you've got an estimate that's got, for example, a Excel spreadsheet, you've got information on 4 different tabs, and you don't have it rolling up to one tab in one spot to where all that information moves to one where you can see it all at once, you're probably doing yourself a disservice, because it's going to be very hard, especially if it's a time frame job where you got a bid due at a certain time, and you're trying to get all the information in and go through all these different tabs and plug in all this different stuff at the last minute. You're more likely to make a mistake if all that information is spread out versus if it's organized, rolls up to a spot to where you can see everything and track everything. So every company's different. You may have an estimating software that does that for you. That's great if you do. If you're using Excel, which I'm sure a lot of, how many of you use Excel right now? And we do too. I'm not gonna lie, we still do. But ours is organized to where we can quickly move around and find it. Just be organized. And then estimate your cost, obviously, right? Once you do your takeoff, you organize how you want to set up your estimate, then you're going to put pen to paper, right? Pencil to paper. You're going to say, okay, it's going to take me this many man-hours to do this, or this many man-hours to do that. And then once your cost is done, prepare your bid. By that I mean you have to write your proposal, fill out the bid form that's provided to you, right? Before you do that, you have to put how much markup does your company want on the project. If you have a standard rate, make sure your markup's on there, make sure you cover your overhead. So you prepare your bid. How many of you have your bids reviewed before they go out the door? Or are you the one that's reviewing it? A handful? Yeah, we don't. Even if me, I'm the estimating manager, somebody reviews my bids every time. Every time. Especially on larger bids, just because you have to have a second set of eyes. You never know, everybody makes mistakes, none of us are perfect. We all strive for that perfect estimate, but the reality is, it doesn't happen. There's always a little something, right? So, plan ahead, get your bid done, and then have time to have somebody review it with you. You'd be amazed at what a fresh set of eyes or somebody different. They may not even know or understand the job. There may be something that's so glaring that you don't pick up on, but just a new set of eyes. It's like, oh wait, why'd you do that? Or what's this? So, prepare your bid. And so then, that's kind of beginning the estimating process. So then completing the estimating process would be if you've got a project and you've got subcontractors that work for you or suppliers, you want to review their scopes and cost proposals, right? We always ask that we receive scopes several days before the actual bids due, so we have time before the price. This is not a price proposal, it's scope only. So we have time to make sure if they've got the scope of work covered that we need covered for that trade. Okay? We don't like to get them 15 minutes before. It's impossible to review scopes. So we always ask a minimum 48 hours in advance. You should do the same. Review your quantities. Does anybody ever check your quantities after you do a takeoff? Just be honest. Anybody? No? You think they do? So do you guys run like a dual estimate?
Sometimes, yeah, on occasion, or sometimes we'll just do a rough check by hand.
Yeah, right. Perfect. Even if it's yourself reviewing your quantities, take the time after you take off and you've let that sit for a while, maybe you've started working on your estimate, okay? You started banging out your costs, go back and just review your quantities to make sure they make sense. Because at certain points throughout your process, you learn the job better and better, right? Every time you take off something else, or you turn a page, you're learning that job to a new level, and you're learning more about it, understanding it better. And there may be something that you didn't catch the first time through when you did a certain takeoff, and it's hard for me to describe an example, but it happens to me a lot, where I'm going through and I realize that, hey, I made a mistake on that because it just doesn't make sense. It's quantity. My experience tells me that this quantity for this little piece of work doesn't make sense. I'll go back and check, and lo and behold, Plan Swift didn't, I didn't punch the right number in Plan Swift, or I didn't type in the right number when I put it in my spreadsheet, whatever. So just take the time to review your quantities either yourself or have somebody else. A good example would be, say you're trying to lay 1,000 feet of pipe and you know you gotta have bedding under the pipe, right? Well, let's say your estimate only has 1 ton of bedding in there. Well, I'm sorry, experience ought to tell you, 1,000 feet of pipe is gonna take a lot more than 1 ton of bedding. That kind of stuff happens. So it's always good to have a second set of eyes. And again, the person may not know the job, but they know that more than 1 ton of bedding is needed for 1,000 feet of pipe. Right? So, review your quantities. Review your bid submission requirements. So whether you receive a formal request for a proposal, a formal invitation to bid, that has a scope of work on it or what's expected in your trade or not, you still want to review what's required on bid day. They want just the bid form, they want a bond, they need an insurance certificate, other alternates described somewhere that I have to provide. Is there any other documentation other than just the bid and proposal that this particular entity wants? Review those requirements and make sure you're planning ahead and not waiting 10 minutes before to try to track down these documents. One of the things our administrative assistant does in estimating is that's her job. When we get plans and specs, and the first thing she does is review the bid requirements with me and starts preparing those documents. It could be a month ahead of time, doesn't matter. She starts preparing those particular documents and has them ready in an electronic folder. Then as the information is generated or ascertained or whatever, then she starts adding the information to those documents. But she at least prepares them, has that bid package ready to go. Have a bid day strategy. Whether you're a subcontractor turning in a single proposal, or whether you're a general contractor that's accepting multiple bids, it doesn't matter in my opinion. Have a bid day strategy. Know what's expected. Know how you're going to close out your bid. Know what time it's due, right? And plan ahead accordingly. So many young estimators, in my opinion, this is a lot of times when they fail. They don't have a good idea of what bid day is all about. Michael, what was your first bid day like? Was it what you expected? Not really, was it? It's pretty wild, wasn't it? Really fast pace, a lot going on. Did anybody sit in on the bid day simulation they did? Daniel, you did? Yeah, you won the gift card. How was that? Was that your first time ever doing anything like that?
It was.
What'd you think?
It was very fast,
Mhm.
especially down to the wire, what the time to turn it in. There was a lot of scrambling going on.
Yeah. It's real. I mean, it's real. We bid a job. We got a job in Norman, Oklahoma, a $30 million water treatment plant, and we were getting the main treatment plant equipment proposal 5 minutes from bid, and we got a guy on the other end of the phone waiting for a final number. So it's real. It happens. Try to avoid it. Plan ahead. But if you have a bid day strategy and you convey that to your southern suppliers, say, I need this by 1 o'clock, bids at 4, I need it by 1 at the latest, I need your scope 2 days ahead of time. Things will flow a little smoother for you. Of course, it goes without saying, complete the bid form and proposal, right? And then submit the bid. And sometimes you can submit them through email, electronically. There's some websites now that some entities are using, right, to upload. I think some of the GCs have their own websites that you can upload proposals to. In our world, especially the municipal world that we live in for water, wastewater, a lot of it's still envelope sealed, turn it in by a certain time. So we've got somebody at that location by phone, taking the final number, they write it in, put it in the envelope, seal it, and drop it off, right?
Yep.
You've done that a couple times, haven't you? Is that fun?
It's fun.
It's a rush, isn't it?
It is a rush, yes.
Any questions about any of this? Anything at all? Is this information useful, not useful so far?
What is a typical strategy, bid-based strategy that you would talk about?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So depending on if you're a single estimator or you have a team, if you're a single estimator, obviously one strategy for me would be don't plan anything else that day. Sounds pretty simple, but you'd be amazed how many guys try to go to a meeting in the morning, or maybe you can't avoid it. Maybe you've got an owner that says, like, hey, I need to meet you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. He's your best customer, right? Let's say he calls you at 3 o'clock the day before the bid. You got a bid at 2 o'clock. And he goes, man, I got to meet you tomorrow at 10. I can't. I got this bid due today. I'm important, right? I give you $1 million worth of work a year. I I've got an issue, I need to meet with you tomorrow. What would you do? Anybody? Delegates, good. But it's kind of hard to delegate an estimate that maybe nobody else is familiar with to close it out, right? What else would you do? Delegate's a good one. You can stay late, right? I was talking to a guy earlier out here, and by no means do I agree with this, but he told me, I'm not going to name the company, it's not a local company. He got hired his first day on the job, went into his office, said, here's your office, and they promptly rolled in a cot, and a sleeping bag and put it in his office. And he looked at him, and this is true, this guy here, I'm not going to tell you who it is because I don't want to embarrass him, but, and he said, I looked at him and said, this is a kind of a first day on the job joke, right? And he said, no, all our estimators get them. So my point to that is, hey, look, we're all in the same boat. We've all worked late nights. Do I force our people? Absolutely not. I'm a family man. I have 3 kids, wife at home. I had triplets actually, so I mean, I was, when they were younger, it was crazy for me, but it happens though. It happens, and you got to be willing to put in the time. So one strategy for me would be have a contingency plan. If something comes up, be willing to stay late the night before. It happens. Part of what we do. A true bid day strategy would be this. If it was Interfab and we were closing out a job, we would have the estimator in charge of the project would be in charge of making sure the estimate's closed out. Okay? In other words, all the numbers that we need are getting in the door. If they're not, he's telling different people, hey, can you call this person, can you call that company, we need to know what their price is. So we've got the one guy that's kind of running the show. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's not. We've got other estimators that are in charge of particular scopes. So one person may be in charge of reviewing masonry scopes, one may be in charge of reviewing painting scopes, and their final pricing. So when that comes in, they're doing that evaluation to make sure we've got the best price. Not always the lowest price, the best price, best proposal. So bid day strategy would be to have your team identified, okay, and know what's required, what you need that day. Some bids close themselves out, and by that I mean everything's flowing smooth, you're getting stuff plenty ahead of time. Really, you're down to just needing 1 or 2 numbers an hour before, a lot of time. But there's other times when it's a complicated project, and for whatever reason, your suppliers, not these guys, but it's usually equipment vendors, but they're playing games, so they don't want to get their number out there too soon, and so they're waiting to the last minute to get your number, and then you can see it's pretty complicated. The one bid day strategy would be to know who's in charge closing out the estimate, and then assign the other tasks accordingly. Any other questions?
Kind of something we were talking about earlier today, you might want to address for people that aren't super familiar with it, the importance of maybe a pre-bid meeting.
Oh, absolutely. How many of you have gone to pre-bid meetings? Yeah, they're very important. We attend every one, whether it's mandatory or not. It's always good to hear what the owner or engineer or architect has to say about the project, kind of their thoughts, insights on certain things. You might find out some information that may not be published necessarily in an addendum or in the spec book. So, yeah, attending pre-bid meetings, and we've even gone so far, and I'm sure, I know others do it too, but on really complicated, important projects, we'll have our own pre-bid meeting and invite certain trades and subs to come into our office and let's talk about this project, especially if it's a situation where it's a proposal, like best value type proposal, not necessarily low bid, because we want to make sure that our subs and our subcontractors, suppliers understand their importance to us, how important they are. And they are, I mean, we do. I mean, hopefully you guys get the impression that we value you guys as a true supplier. We really do. We value all our important sub and suppliers, because without them, you're not going to be successful. So yeah, pre-bid meetings, good one. Any other questions?
So it still gets really goofy about an hour, 2 hours before the bid, with all these guys getting you bids and they're trying to negotiate to the final number before the 5-minute sign thing. It's still like that.
Yeah, at times. I mean, technology's helped some of that, and things have sped up, and no, it still happens. So, lastly on the estimating process, just real quick, I want to touch on, once you win a project, Now what? How many of you in here have companies that track your costs? Good. Good, you have to, right? How else do you know if you're making money? If you don't track your costs, how else do you know you're making money? And the estimator is key to that, because you're developing those costs, and you need to be detailed enough to provide it in a format that whether it's you yourself are going to take that and manage it and turn it into a job cost so you can track it, or you're passing it off to somebody, what we call turnover, turning it over to operations, having it in a format that's trackable and broke out in a way that they can pull different parts of the work out of there, different kinds of labor, or all the different materials, you know. If you hand them the job and say, here, we have $500,000 in materials on this job, here. We're going to look at that and go, well, what all's in this number, right? We need materials. What are materials? But if you go to them and say, I got 100,000 in pipe aggregate, I got 50,000 in valves, I got $75,000 in PVC pipe, all right, and I've got $60,000 in Scott's McTulloch material, then they're like, okay, now I can track this. Right? I know all my different parts and pieces in that estimate, and I can track it. So when you prepare your estimate for project management, you're really preparing your estimate from up front, because so be detailed and break it out so you can track the different costs at the end of the day. And then I'm just going to talk real quick about cost coding. We do cost coding. In other words, once an estimate's done, it's organized and put into different cost code categories like labor, equipment, different types of materials, different types of labor tasks, whether it's concrete labor or mechanical labor, and then of course it's broken down a little more finite than that. When we break it all down into cost codes, and then when the people in the field do that work, their time gets charged to that cost code so you can track it. Everybody understand that? So if you tell your PM, hey, you got $50,000 in mechanical labor, and everybody that does mechanical on that work, that job is coding to that time, and they're looking at that weekly and forecasting out to make sure the job's on track, to make sure you're going to make money. If it's a 10-week job, and you had even a $50,000 budget in labor, and after 4 weeks that $50,000 ate up, what, I mean, you're in trouble, right? So you've got to be able to track it and see those trends early so you can figure out if it was a bust in the estimate or they're doing something wrong in the field, whatever. But if you don't know, if you're not tracking your jobs, then how do you know if you're really making money? There's so many small companies, and no disrespect, I've been there, I owned my own small company for about 6 years. They don't understand and know if they're making money, and it's a trap, okay, unless you're tracking your costs. Now, I was going to show you another video, but that one didn't work out too good. I had the video. Anybody ever seen Jerry Maguire? Remember? Show Me the Money? I was going to play that video. We'll skip that. So, all right, basic takeoffs. And no, I'm not talking about an airplane. Taking off from the new KCI airport. Hopefully you can build a couple of years. A takeoff is a trade term that we use that is part of the cost estimating process. We use the blueprints, the plans, to either manually or electronically start taking off the quantities needed to prepare your estimate. Okay? I didn't want to put up an example of just a plan sheet and trace stuff out. I didn't think that'd be worth time. So what I did is I just went through here and I listed out kind of the different types of takeoffs that we see as estimators to help you out. If you have questions about any of this, feel free to shout out. I can explain, talk you through it. If you don't know how to do a certain takeoff and you have a question, you may not know, but if I do know, I'll try to answer it. But, you know, the basic types of takeoffs are counting, or what we like to call per each takeoff, right? Linear, when everything's in a line. Area, volume, and weight. Those are the main takeoffs that I see in everything we do. Is there one up here that somebody else may see that I didn't, general category, I didn't capture? Am I missing anything here? If I am, shout it out, I'd like to know. But for example, like an example of counting, you know, if you're an electrical estimator, you're taking off light fixtures, right? You're counting how many lights we have in this room. Or if you're a civil guy, you're taking, you got a water line project, you're taking off how many fire hydrants you have maybe, or how many valves, how many different types of fittings. If you're a architectural finished carpentry contractor, maybe taking off doors, right? How many doors I have. Sometimes we can get down into the nuts and bolts for certain things. And these types of takeoffs are called each or per 100 count. A lot of times you see nuts and bolts. I don't know how many of you get quotes on nuts and bolts. Anybody know? But if you ever do, sometimes you'll see the quote come in what's called per 100 count. So if you need 5,000 bolts, they'll give you a price of, let's just say, 50 cents per 100. Okay. So then you'd have to take 5,000 divided by 100, multiply times 50 cents, and that's your total cost. So anyway, any questions on that? And there are linear takeoffs. So when I think of linear takeoffs, some of the things that come to my mind are pipe, electrical wire, parking lot stripes outside, wall trim. All right. Anything else? Anybody else need good linear takeoffs you can think of? Anybody? Those are the main ones that come to my mind. Some people bid, I guess, anybody here carpenter work? Anybody? I think some guys may bid certain types of walls by the foot, but we don't. We bid it by square foot. And then you got area takeoffs. So examples of area takeoffs that you do on area would be paving, whether it's concrete or asphalt or granular gravel paving, masonry walls, right? How many square foot of block or brick are we putting up? Walls, any type of wall, whether it's metal stud, wood stud, countertops, right? I think guys that do finish work take off countertops by the square foot. How many square foot of countertop you have? Flooring, obviously, carpet, tile, seating and sodding by the square foot or square yard. And then those types of areas are, like I just said, square feet, square yard, and those are the abbreviations you typically see for those types of takeoffs. And sometimes by the acre. I think some of the seating guys will give you quotes by the acre.
On some of those masonry walls, you might see square foot face.
SQF, yep. Good. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, sometimes, like when you're taking off formwork for concrete, it's two-sided, right? You got to form both sides of a wall to pour concrete in it, right? So when you take off do that type of takeoff for a concrete wall, you want to make sure you take off both sides, right? Because your total formwork is not just one face of the wall. It's two faces. For masonry, a lot of times, when you're looking at a CMU or a block brick wall, they only consider the square footage on one side. So if somebody said, yeah, I'm putting up 1,000 feet of brick wall, that would be one side. So one whole, as you're looking at it, that would be 1,000 feet. If you're looking at a concrete wall for formwork, that 1,000 feet is 2,000 because you have to consider the other side. That makes sense? So that's a good point. And there's volume takeoffs. You know, how much concrete do I have by the cubic yard? How much grout? Sometimes people like to do aggregates by the cubic yard. Paint by the gallon sometimes. Excavation backfill, as far as how many yards of earthwork, right, and digging or compacting. So those typical types of units are cubic feet, cubic yard, gallon. So those are CF, CY, GAL. Those are the typical abbreviations you see for that kind of stuff. And then there's weight. You know, how many of you have to deal with quantities and weight? What is it?
Asphalt by the ton.
I'm sorry, what?
Asphalt.
Yeah, ton by the ton, sure. How many tons I need to lay 8 inches of asphalt?
Do you have any places you can go to know what those conversions are as far as concrete by the, or rock or?
Yeah, and if not, I
Sites
can
to
email
go
you
to.
some stuff that we use. I'll get your card and I can tell you. But for aggregate, a lot of people use to go from. Let me make sure I get this right. To go from tons to cubic yards, you multiply your tons by 2. And it's just kind of a rule of thumb people use. I don't go that strong. I usually use like a 1.7 or 1.8 conversion. But it's all based on unit weights and stuff, and you can research that and see what an average unit weight for rock is. I think it's around 110, 115 pounds per cubic foot. Does that make sense? So you can take that pounds per cubic feet. If you do your volume takeoff, figure out how many cubic feet you have, multiply it times that unit weight, it tells you how many total pounds you have, and then you divide by 2,000, it tells you how many tons you have. But yeah, if you Google it, there's a lot of stuff out there on different conversions. Asphalt, I can't remember what the conversion is for tons.
Depends how thick, but
I mean,
We have a conversion for an inch per square yard.
Is it like .556 or something?
I think
0.558?
3 inches is .165, something like that. We have
3
it in
inches?
Excel.
Right, 3 inches? Yeah, because
Yeah.
1 inch, that's why I say 1 inch is like .556 or 558. So you took that
Yeah.
times 3, that'd be your one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Or .0, I don't know.
0.05.
There's a lot of conversions out there, and the internet's a good source of it. Yeah, if you want to, I'll give you a card, shoot me an email. Send us your stuff. But as far as weights go, we're looking at reinforcing steel. I call them rod busters, but the steel reinforcing installer guys, the iron workers, they want to bid everything by the pound or ton, so they'll give you a price to install by the pound or ton. So knowing your weight for reinforcing steel is important. Structural steel, a lot of times the same way, it's by the ton. Then there's aggregate, asphalt, soil, C, anchor bolts. Sometimes anchor bolts are done by the ton, believe it or not. Okay? And those abbreviations are pounds, LBS, TN, and again, there's our per 100 weight, or CWT. Sometimes anchor bolts are done per 100 weight. Any questions about any of this? Is this useful? Maybe? So let's talk about takeoff accuracy. It's one thing to get your quantities, but it's another thing to be accurate, right? You want to be accurate. You want to not miss stuff. You don't want to have mistakes. You want to make money for your company, so you don't want to do anything that's going to cost extra money after you say, hey, I thought it was only going to take us 1,000 tons, instead it took us 2,000 tons. Well, why? So just some tips on how to make sure you're accurate. First of all, do some QC. Just review the calculations. We talked about this a little bit earlier. I think sometimes a second look, it jumps out at you. Oh, I multiplied that by 10, not by 100, right? So have a QC plan, whether it's yourself, you give yourself time to review it, or you can have somebody else. If you have the luxury of having somebody else, have somebody else review your takeoff. Do it. And review your scope. Make sure you're capturing everything in your estimate that's expected of you to capture in your estimate. Review the scope of work. If there's not one provided for you and you have developed a scope of work yourself to present to somebody, then call that contractor or email. I prefer phone call, but a lot of people like email. Call them up or email them and just say, hey, is this what you're expecting? I want to make sure I'm accurate here. I don't want to give you something that is way off, makes you upset, wastes your time. I want to make sure I'm accurate. So is this the scope of work you're expecting? No, I'll talk to you, certainly, and most estimators hopefully will. You may have a guy or gal that doesn't, but shame on them. But I'm not afraid to talk to you and let you know. Okay? It only helps us all, right? Build the project in your mind. How many of you, when you're taking off a job, are kind of in your mind building it and understanding what it's going to take? Anybody know? Yeah, a handful? I talked to Michael about the time we built this project, right? Build it in your mind. As you're going through it, think about what is it going to take to build it. And you may not know. I don't know everything. There's certain scopes, certain things I don't know. So if you don't know, ask. Reach out to a friend. Reach out to a coworker, somebody in the industry you know. Don't be afraid to make phone calls and use your resources. There's no shame in that. And ask questions. You don't know, right? So build it in your mind, and if you're unsure of how this particular part of the job will get built, try to find somebody that might know. Right? Of course, ask questions. Be clear on what it is you're taking off, and be clear on what it is you're providing to the end user. Take off your quantities, then estimate your costs. So one of the ways that one of my personal methods or procedures is I don't jump around. I don't take off a little bit and estimate a little bit, take off a little bit and estimate a bit. If I have a whole discipline, let's say I've got a whole wastewater treatment plant and we're taking off the yard pipe, I will take off all the yard pipe and then maybe estimate. Or I might go on to my next takeoff, whether it's the process equipment or the concrete or whatever it may be. And I'll get all my takeoff done before I estimate. Because there's several reasons I do that. Number one, I like to think I'm pretty good at this right here, okay? So once my train of thought gets going and that train gets rolling, I don't want to stop it. So once I'm in the groove, so to speak, and you've all been there, right? You kind of get in that and you're just cranking along. Once you're in that mode, I don't want to jump back and forth. My takeoff's done, I'm building this job in my head and estimating at the same time. Because a lot of times you stop, you go back and start taking something off, you lose that train of thought, and you may forget something that you thought about if you didn't write it down, or you may not think about something you should have. It's just me personally. Everybody's got their own method, but for me it works. It helps me minimize my mistakes. I'm not perfect, but it does help me minimize my mistakes. So I like to take off everything first, then estimate the costs. But like I said, to each his own. The question, is there anybody else that does it that way, or anybody? How does anybody else do it?
I do all my takeoff and then I do the estimate when I'm all done.
And do you find that helps you, number one, with your productivity, and number two, does it help you kind of with the flow, build the job in your head? Does that help? No?
Yeah. Forget pulled to do other things.
To me, again, it helps me be more productive too. I'm just in that takeoff mode, just ripping off quantities, checking them, making sure they're right, organizing my takeoff. I use PlanSwift. We as Interfab use PlanSwift for all our civil, structural, architectural takeoffs. And so it's easy to export an Excel spreadsheet after you do your takeoff, and then so what I'll do all my takeoff, export it, and then I'll split it up into architectural, concrete, earthwork, whatever. And I'll have a tab, and I'll have a quantities or a takeoff spreadsheet only. And I'll divide that into tabs, so if I ever need to, if I want to look at just architectural, boom, it's all there. If I want to look at just my structural concrete, boom, it's all there. That's just how, it's one of my ways that I help limit my mistakes. And then, of course, I've harped on this, but review the takeoff, right? I mean, I can't say it enough. I just can't. I know we all get in that pinch, and there's always that one time. I've been there, I've done it. You know, you're in a hurry, and you don't have time, and to be honest with you, you've probably gotten lucky, right? Didn't have a mistake, but review your takeoff. If you have a process, and you plan ahead, you should have time to review it. And review the estimate as well. So, just kind of an overview, a little early, but, yeah.
Do you ever, as far as building the job in your mind, do you ever use a 3D model to kind of just look at that? While you're taking it off, like a little 3D model you look at and you say, this is how I visualize it?
Absolutely. We don't develop them in-house. I mean, we have BIM capabilities, but most of those models are always developed by the engineer, architect, or general contractor. So yeah, if they're available, and there is one, absolutely. We've got one now for the job in Des Moines we're looking at. We've got a 3D model. And it's helping because the plans weren't very good. So the model's helping us see things that we couldn't see on the 2D. You'll understand the format of the plans, right? It'll help you navigate the plans a little easier. It'll help you understand what disciplines are in this set of plans. Know your scope. Right? Know the scope of what you're expected to take off and estimate. And know where to find it in the plans, whether it's mechanical, plumbing, masonry, structural. And then practice. Just practice looking at plans. Like I said, I review plans twice. I get them the first time they come in, I do a quick once through, just kind of get a flavor of the job, kind of get a rough understanding of what's inside that set of plans. And then I do a little more thorough review even before I take it off. I do a second, more thorough study of the plans to know exactly where I have to go to take off my things. One of the things I do, I think Michael, you do it now, I'll take, those little colored tabs you can get, those little sticky colored tabs. People laugh at me because they come to my office and my plans are all over my desk. Every one of them's got red, blue, purple, green, yellow, all these sections I've tabbed out. And I write on their civil, I write on their structural, I write on their mechanical, electrical. And I divide it all out and tab it. So when I want to go to civil, I just find that tab, flip it, and there's all my civil drawings. I want to go to mechanical, HVAC, flip it, there's all my, and it helps me navigate things a lot quicker, helps me be more productive. Just a tip. I don't know how many people do that. How many people? It helps, doesn't it? It's big help for me. The other thing I do up front is I read the specs. We didn't really talk about that very much, probably should have, but how many of you actually, before you do a takeoff, read the specs? Before you do a takeoff?
I'm gonna say, what do you do if there is?
Huh?
A lot of
If there
times,
is one.
yeah, a lot of times you run into them where they get specs and it's, say, well, we want this there, but we're not gonna give you exactly what you're asking, what we're
What
expecting.
type of work?
Oh, this was like, I don't know, on a job we're doing right now, it was a fire extinguisher cabinet. Like, they're like, oh, we want a fire extinguisher cabinet. Well, what kind do you
What kind do you
want?
want?
So like on the walk, they were, I took pictures of the one in the hallway, it's pre-existing, I'm like, well, we're gonna price this one, and
Yeah.
then qualify that that's what we're doing.
Exactly.
So you kind of figure out what to do, so I don't know if that would be a good approach with it, or?
Well, yeah, I had a job once, not last summer, as a matter of fact. The city wanted us to come and put a water line in with a couple of clarifiers so they could, wanted us to wash down stuff. And they wanted spray nozzles on the end of this water line that we were gonna run up out of the ground across the clarifier bridge. And they wanted these nozzles, but they didn't know what they wanted. And so we want nozzles. What kind of nozzles? So I just did some research, reached out to a local company that supplied nozzles, asked this guy his opinion, told him the situation, what we were trying to do. He goes, yeah, you want this nozzle. I priced that nozzle and told him, this is a nozzle in price, and you want something different, then our price will change. So, yeah, there's nothing, if you're in a situation where it's something like that, then that's the best you can do, right? But be sure to clarify it.
Yeah,
So if you did, say, this is exactly what you're getting for this price.
Qualify it. Whenever the specs are incomplete or something, it's a lot of qualifying.
No, it's good. Yeah, read the specs. It sucks, it's laborious, but you have to do it. You have to do it. So my personal little routine, I do my initial flip, and then I actually read the specs, because I want to know, the specs also tell me what subs and suppliers I'm going to be looking for, right? So before I send out all our solicitations, I read the specs and look at the divisions. So what I'll do is we use Building Connected. Does anybody use any type of software to send out your invites? No? Smart Bid? Yeah, we get stuff Smart Bid.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, we get stuff from you guys all the time. Yeah, we work with you guys. before,
Yes,
so.
yeah, I've worked with this now.
So we use Building Connected, and you can set it up in bid packages, right? And so I always do the bid packages by spec section. Now, some overlap, I get that, so I'm kind of choosy and picky on which spec section I choose for that bid package. Because like for structural metal, right, you may have 4 different specs that deal with structural metal. I just pick one anyway. But reading those specs and looking at that table of contents in the spec right away tells me what's involved with the project. And then I kind of start getting an idea of who I need to get involved from the sub and supplier standpoint. So like I said, practice. Just practice. Don't be afraid, all right? Estimating tools. We talked a little bit about knowledge. Hopefully I've given you a little bit today. Be honest, has this been helpful, useful, redundant, not redundant? Yeah. Okay. But hopefully you've got a little bit of knowledge today on insight on some things that we do in Interfab that we feel help us be successful. And devices, obviously computers are where everything's at today. And then technology. Man, it's happening quick. Every day it seems like there's some new product or new software or something out there that can help us be successful. It's hard to keep up with. And then we talked about the different types of takeoffs, right? What the definition of a takeoff is, in case you didn't know. Different types. And then we talked about accuracy. One thing that I always tell our guys is that there's no such thing as a perfect estimate, guys and gals. I don't believe in that. There's no such thing as a perfect estimate. And you'll kill yourself trying to get to it, but don't stop trying, right? So we're always trying to achieve that perfect estimate, but you're not. Let's just be honest. Little things, mistakes happen. Right? No estimate's perfect. You're not perfect. But what you want to do as an estimator is make sure you're doing the best job that you can to cover the costs for your company, put a reasonable markup on it, and win the work. That's, in my opinion, that's what we strive to do. Well, I thank you all for coming. I really hope this was useful in some way. And if you have any questions, I can give you a business card. You can reach out to me and answer any other questions you might have.